All right, St. Luke, Pastor Ben coming to you. It's 3:45 on Wednesday afternoon. You're seeing a couple of new faces. We are super excited. Last night was call day at Concordia Seminary, St. Louis. You are looking at your new associate pastor and his wife, Jared and Emily Townley. So why don't you guys say a couple of words of welcome?
Hey, St. Luke, Jared, and this is Emily. Obviously, like Pastor Ben just said, and we are so excited to come out and serve alongside you in Cabot, and we're just really looking forward to coming out and joining you that way. Call day last night was really exciting for us. We had some hints and some feelings that we might be coming to St. Luke, but to finally know and to figure that out for sure was just such a relief and such an exciting thing as well, to just hope for the future and dream a little bit too about what that might look like. That's
awesome. You have call documents in your hands. They can't take it away now. So this is real. This is official.
Like President Meyer said in his sermon last night, the calls are for real flesh and blood people, which is kind of hard to remember sometimes with this virtual age that we're in with services online and things like that. But in the box that you sent, there's all the member pictures and everything. And we were sitting eating lunch, and I was like, Emily, those are the people we're going to love. Those are the people we're going to get to serve.
That's awesome.
And it's just so exciting.
So that's a great kind of segue into a good question for you. So you go to undergrad for 4 years, you get a degree in whatever it is that you're interested in pursuing, but you have to get into the seminary. And then you spend another 4 years studying, diving deep on things, doing the practical, doing the academic things. How difficult is it to keep in perspective that there are real people at the end of that process waiting for you to serve them? And then what's it like now, knowing who those people are going to be and where it is that you're going?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a reason sometimes people joke and say that it's cemetery and not seminary, because it's really easy to lose sight. Well, it is. It's easy to lose sight of what your goal is, and that there's people that are out there that you're going to go serve in the future. But now it's like, all right, let's do it. We're just kind of ready to go and serve and be there with people, sort of things like that in the future.
That's awesome. So here's a general question. What did you know about Pittsburgh before your interview with Barry and I? What do you know about Pittsburgh now?
Ooh, do you want to answer that one?
What do we know about before? Someone described it as kind of like St. Louis. And what do we know now? Not much more.
A little bit. There's sports teams.
Yeah, we've looked more into like Cabot and the Butler area more than we've looked into Pittsburgh. But
good. So that's probably a question that people are wanting to hear an answer from you on. So are you sports fans? And if so, are you willing to change alliances and support Pittsburgh teams?
So one of my friends from our vicarage congregation asked me somewhat of the same question. And he said, is there always going to be a little spot in your heart for the Blues since you were here when they won the Stanley Cup? And I think there always will be a little spot in my heart for the Blues, but I'm not super committed to too many teams. I grew up as a Tigers fan, diehard Detroit Tigers fan, because my mother is super invested that way. And my dad is a big Michigan State fan because he graduated from there. So those are my sports allegiances.
Okay.
Are you willing to change any of your allegiances, Emily?
Yeah, I don't have any.
Well, people are going to be really happy to hear that. I'm going to move the camera just to show you. I'm in my office right now, and you can see why people are so offended by my sports allegiances.
Nice.
The Vikings fight song right here. My wife painted a canvas for me. My actual Viking horn that I got when I was in 6th grade at a Vikings game. A couple of calendar pages that people from St. Luke have given me since I've been here. So they will at least have one pastor that's willing to be a Pittsburgh fan. So
there you go.
Sharon Ambrose, this is for you. You don't know Sharon yet, but she will be happy to hear that you guys are willing to compromise. So lots of happy Pittsburghers here.
That's awesome.
So I don't know if I wrote this in my welcome letter to you guys or not, but again, here's the Minnesota guy giving Pittsburgh advice. But has anybody told you about the local slang that we use the words yins and yuns? So it's kind of like the Pittsburgh y'all. So, so the truly local people here, and I've had to practice this. I've done this in announcements before church, and I've had people correct me and make sure I'm talking Pittsburghese right. But instead of saying you would just ask, hey, how yins doing?
Oh.
And if it's the plural, it's yuns.
All right.
People from Pittsburgh are called yinsers. So, yeah, I know I made the same face too. It doesn't make any sense, but people would be upset if I didn't set the tone and share that with you early on. So
sounds like something I'll have to learn.
Yeah, right. So Emily, tell us, not to put you on the spot, but what's call day like from your chair? What were things like last night, having supported your husband in seminary, and what were things like for you?
I think what made virtual call day special was the fact that I actually got to sit next to Jared in that moment. So that was a positive. Otherwise it could have been a really sad time not being able to gather together and celebrate. But it was really nerve-wracking to have to think about like the technical side of it. Like, oh, is it going to freeze? And initially it was having a hard time. People couldn't stream it. So you had to go to YouTube, and it was nerve-wracking. And then a friend of ours found out you could actually skip to the calls on the on the website. So if you wanted to skip it all, you could just
So did
go.
you?
We didn't do that. We watched it from the start. But it was wonderful.
Are patient people.
Yeah. It was really enjoyable to be able to sit next to each other and celebrate. It seemed less stressful than maybe it would have been. But yeah, it was a wonderful, wonderful night.
That's awesome. So let's do a little bit of an easier one here. Tell us how long you've been married and how'd you guys meet?
Well, we've been married almost for 2 years. In June we'll be married for 2 years. We met when we were hiking the Appalachian Trail. That's a long story, but the short version is that we both blogged for the same website. So we were friends on Facebook, and I eventually chased her down and and caught her around 300 miles into the trail.
Literally because you're hiking?
That's yes, slowly, day after day, one step in front of the other. And then we ended up like 1,600 miles, I think, together of the whole trail. And we finished the trail together and just both happened to be going to St. Louis for school. So that's kind of then when we started dating. And we were married in 2018. Yeah. So
remind me and others who may be geographically challenged, how long is the Appalachian Trail? How long did it take you?
Yeah, so the trail goes from northern Georgia to the middle of Maine, basically, 2,200 miles, and it took us about 150 days.
Yeah, 5 months.
5 months.
Wow. And how many pairs of socks did you burn through in that time?
Ooh.
More shoes than socks.
Yeah, they make some pretty nice socks these days.
The shoes wore out before the socks did.
That's good. So, Jared, we heard from you that your family's from Michigan originally. Where are you from, Emily?
I was born in Wisconsin, but I grew up in Central Illinois.
I'm sorry that you said that. I showed you my hiking stuff too soon.
No, my mom's a Packers fan, but
even worse.
Yeah, I know.
We're not off on the right foot, Emily. That's all right. We all love cheese. It's okay. That's great. So originally from Wisconsin. So what brought you to school in St. Louis? So what do you do? What were you studying in St. Louis?
I applied to grad school, a bunch of grad schools before I started hiking, and then I found out I got into WashU School of Medicine for occupational therapy. I got into one other school, but this one was the one that was closest to home and, seemed like the best option. So finished up my degree in occupational therapy while Jared was on vicarage.
That's awesome. So do you have a specialization, or do you have a preference of what kind of OT work you do?
Well, right now I'm working with older adults and the caregivers of people with Alzheimer's and dementia. I prefer working with older adults or geriatrics, but
That's great.
I'm flexible.
Lots of opportunities up here in Cabot. The largest Lutheran senior living community is a quarter mile from church and from your house.
There you go.
So, and even beyond, it's Concordia Lutheran Ministries. Even beyond Concordia, lots of opportunities around. So that'll be good for you. So we're recording this just to bring things home a little bit here. We're recording this. We're going to put this on our social media just as a kind of daily post and getting to know you. So I'll ask you a couple of kind of faith-based questions here. So I'll ask you both the same question. Maybe you answer it independently of each other. You can decide who goes first. But if you had to pick about one or two main things that the seminary process has taught you about your own faith, what are kind of the one or two of the biggest things that has helped your faith grow, or kind of things you've learned along the way in this process as you're nearing the end of it?
Oh yeah, go ahead.
I've mostly learned of God's provision. All of these times we've been faced with unknown, and we were placed at a wonderful vicarage in St. Charles, Missouri, and we were taken care of there. And now that we've received this call to St. Luke's, it just reminds me of God's provision and the plan that He has for us.
That's good.
Awesome.
I think one thing that's I continue to come back to is the more I know, the less I know. Is so true. But more than that, the more I know, the more I also have to continue to have like a relationship with Christ, because so often it can just be about studying and learning and all the head knowledge things. But you have to really take time to also just spend time dwelling, being, praying that way. And that's, I think, one of the things that seminary has taught me, but also formed me that way to do that also.
That's awesome. That's really healthy perspective. I got to say, I knew those things in my head, but those are a couple of things that I had to learn even in the first couple of years, by making mistakes. So you're ahead of the curve. That's great. That's awesome. So here's another kind of put you on the spot question, but is there a Bible verse? Is there some piece of scripture that you have come back to that has kind of sustained your faith, or that you've drawn endurance or comfort from in this process?
Yeah, I mean, so I took a course this year on Ecclesiastes and Job, some of the wisdom literature and scriptures, and it was really challenging for me to read and just really process through what it means when Ecclesiastes says that everything is meaningless and futile, that Luther called the book against free will, and like it was really rough. But at the same time, I think I've come out of it at a better place of realizing that because of these things, that is why we can live our life, doing the things that we love and using the gifts that God has given to us that way. So I think that Ecclesiastes 1:2, which is meaningless, everything's meaningless, is one verse because of all those things I said, because without a context, that seems kind of crass. But my second one, I've always said Romans 5, the suffering produces endurance, endurance produces character, and character produces hope, which does not fail us because of the love of Christ, which is poured out into our hearts by the Holy Spirit. And I think that a life lived in suffering is hard, but we have hope because of Christ, and that is something I've always clung to. Definitely.
That's awesome. Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, Ecclesiastes. So here's kind of the SEM student question. Which language do you like better? Because you went to Ecclesiastes and Job first, so does that mean you're closer with your Hebrew than you are with your Greek?
It's a funny answer because I studied Greek for 3 years at Valpo, where I did my undergrad, and only Hebrew for 1 year. So my skill set, I think, is better in Greek, but I enjoy Hebrew more because it's more like a puzzle and it follows the rules. Whereas Greek, you can do whatever you want, and as a rule follower, it's not very helpful.
People at St. Luke are up for original language in preaching, so
Sweet.
don't be afraid to bring it to people. So that's awesome.
I like that.
Well, hey, any last words of greeting or anything you want to say? I'll give you the floor here for another minute or two as we close up.
Do you want to say anything?
We are overjoyed to hear of this upcoming future, and we're so excited to meet everyone, and hopefully in person, and just get to love and learn a new community.
Yeah,
that's awesome. All right, guys. Well, hey, thanks for the time. I'm gonna end the recording here, but St. Luke, you've got a good one. These two, Barry and I, have heard nothing but great things. We made a lot of phone calls. The Townleys don't know I'm about to say this, but we made a lot of phone calls asking around on the Townleys, and we heard nothing but great things from professors, from me, friends that I'm still close with that were classmates of the Townleys. We hear nothing but good things, so we know that the Lord is up to awesome things among us at St. Luke. We're just overjoyed and can't wait for you to join us, Jared and Emily. So thanks for the time, and we will end the recording here. Take care.
Bye.